Currently in India, we are experiencing a heat wave and also in parts of Asia. Just a few weeks ago, we did see flooding happen in Dubai, in Nairobi, and parts of China. So far this year in 2024, we are seeing record temperatures being set. And if you go back a few decades or even just a few years, there have been many events which have been caused by climate change. Now, all of these natural disasters result in a loss of life, property, livelihood, and many other things. And one key aspect that is impacted by climate change is food security. Food security is a very important issue, and today in this episode, we are talking about the interconnectedness between climate change and agriculture, hence food security, what we can do to have a positive impact on both of them. And we are seeing natural farming as a solution that can be helpful in addressing all of this. And of course, as always, we'll be closing out with what you and I can do to bring about a positive change. So the first question is a very fundamental one. How does climate change impact agriculture? Does it have an effect on crop yield, farming patterns, pest infestation, or anything that you would like to share with us?
So this greenhouse gas effect is leading to climate change, and this climate change is affecting the lives and livelihoods of all of us who are very precariously placed. More so in case of agriculture, where farmers are caught with this, climatic conditions which they are not used to, either extreme heats, drought-like condition, or untimely rain and flooding, which is causing the crop loss. Last time when we had heavy rains for the past 2 years, untimely rains, and that was causing a lot of problems for the client, for the farmers who were producing. They were losing about 30% of the crops that they were producing. So in this way, neither you can ensure the food security, forget about the nutrition. First of all, you are losing out on the food security or the yield. When the yield goes down, then there's a questionable um, thing on the food security. So now farmers are losing because of this 20 to 25%. And it is predicted if the temperatures are going to go high as it is now, certainly farmers will not be able to go in 45 degrees and 50 degrees to do cultivation. That is also going to affect the food security. Climate change is a reality now. There is nothing like it's not there. So now everybody have come to terms that there is climate change, and farmers especially, they are suffering immensely due to this climate change because of the untimely rain or delayed monsoon setting, unseasonal rains, and or delayed winter. That is also causing a lot of problems. It affects the plant health, then delayed flowering and withering of flowers due to excess heat or excess rain or delayed fruit setting. Or fruit will set, but they will not be grain in only chaffy grains. Means only the chaff will be there. There will not be any grain. Sometimes uh, there is no chaff, no grain. So it's a crude shock to the farmers with immense loss of yield and income, both. So natural farming can withstand the vagaries of climate change because here what happens is the key is the soil. When you add lot of organic matter to the soil and you do it, wean away from your chemical fertilizers, which make the soil compact. Instead, when you adopt all the natural constituents like the animal waste, the plant based, and you mulch with the organic matter and add lot of organic matter in some form or the other to the soil, that makes the soil more porous. And when the soil becomes porous, then it has got the capacity to absorb as much water as possible, and it is so loose that there is circulation of air, and all this will withstand extreme weather conditions. When they are delayed monsoon, the plant is able to go deep into the soil. The roots are able to go far and wide and reach out for the nutrients and water, and soil being very porous. And also, when soil is loose and porous, it can also take in the unseasonal rain instead of getting flooded. Otherwise, you see farmers who are practicing chemical farming or conventional farming, those farms become so compact, the soil becomes compact because of these chemical fertilizers, that it does not allow the water to percolate. When water doesn't percolate and it stays there, it rots the plants. So this way, the farmers are losing out. So in both the conditions, so natural farming, it is the key, or I can say it's the solution for this all untimely, unseasonal conditions that we are facing, and the severe drought-like condition we are facing. So we have had an, um, you know, trial. We did it in Kurnool, and we could see that how natural farming was able to withstand both the extreme conditions. So not only that, the soil being the key here, and with natural farming, soil becomes the key there to combat climate change. It also enables the pest disease, to resist against this. So this resistance develops in the plant. So that way, I think natural farming is the answer for this climate change as far as agriculture is concerned.
We've also seen a lot of pest infestation happen in the last few years, a locust attacks, which almost sounds very biblical, which has happened in many parts of Asia. And it also is said that every degree in rise of temperature aids to the growth of these pests, and there are more of these coming. And of course, this has an impact on the farms and the farmer and food security, which can again go back to climate change. Now, there are many adjustments, I would say, how farmers recalibrate to compensate for everything that is happening. So do you see farmers using more chemicals as pesticides or fertilizers so that they can recalibrate what is happening because of climate change, but then again they are again adding towards climate change?
So right now, farmers understanding, those who understand natural farming, who have shifted to natural farming, they understand how natural farming is helping them to overcome this climate change. So they are more aligned to that, they have understood. But most of the farmers, I say 90% of the farmers are yet to get converted, their methodology to natural methodologies. Still, they are following the conventional type of farming, where they use a lot of pesticides and fertilizers, synthetic fertilizers and pesticides. No, what do they understand? They only understand one thing. When it rains heavily and there are thrips in the chilies, they tend to put more chemical pesticides and fertilizers in order to overcome that. That's the only solution they have known, and they seek the same solution over and over again, where they incur more cost on the inputs, and that is not going to give them any sort of a relief. So this is actually adding to the climate change, as we just now discussed, that the more production, the more fossil fuels you burn, and more fossil fuels you burn, you add to the emissions. And when you have more emissions, the emissions like greenhouse gases, they are getting trapped in the atmosphere. Again, that is heating up the globe, and that's causing the climate change. So like this, it is directly related if the farmers are not willing to change to a natural methodology. So in fact, they are adding to the climate change, knowingly or unknowingly. It's unknowingly, I can say.
So how can natural farming in comparison to conventional farming sustainably help agriculture become more climate resilient? And also, are there any examples that you can share about this?
Yes, first and foremost, in natural farming, we do not have to produce any input in a factory. All the inputs are made on farm, in the farm of a farmer. And all the raw materials to make the inputs are all natural. They are either the animal based or the leaf based. So they gather either from their own farms or from a nearby farm and get it and do it in their own farm. So there is no reason why we have to add to the emissions. These are all simply concoctions that are made by mixing or making a paste and mixing along with the animal waste. This is how it is done. So when you can understand, now there is no combustion, no emission. So much you have cut down on emissions, which are adding to the climate change. That's point number one. Point number two is in natural farming, when you add, as I mentioned just now, that lot of organic matter in the form of straw mulching or your farm waste being mulched into the soil, and also the animal waste and the plant based, these are all nothing but organic matter which you are adding to the soil over and over again, making the soil more, fertile. You're adding to the fertility of the soil, and it becomes more porous. And when it becomes more porous, as I just now explained, how it enables the extreme weathers for the plant to survive and grow and also to give yield. So we have had two, as I said, we did some trials, and we have had two very extreme condition examples where one condition was, it was about 42 degrees and there was a prolonged summer, and the onset of monsoon was delayed by more than 1.5 months. So there in that condition, the sunflower plant, naturally grown versus the one which was grown with the conventional farming, we could compare and see the naturally grown one was able to bloom. The flower was able to bloom, whereas the conventional farming, though it was planted at the same time, sown at the same time, there was a vast difference. It could not bloom because there was no water. Then you can understand how much of water is required for chemical farming versus the natural farming. So because you have already made your soil so porous, the plant is able to go far and wide and fetch its nutrients and the moisture or the water that it needs. Whereas here, the plant, you have made the soil so compact by putting all the chemical fertilizers that this it's not allowing the roots to grow or go deep, go in search of nutrients and water. So this is the main difference. That is what we have seen in our trials. Then another condition where it was the crop was standing in the farm and not one crop. We have had this experiment across the crops like onion, castor, we had black gram, and we had paddy also. All the four we observed chemical versus natural, chemical versus natural. In all these cases, what we could see is wherever we practice natural farming, there, though there was an untimely rain in the month of October 2017, heavy rain, which was about 112% more than the average of that particular place, Kurnool, though there was a flood-like condition, but we could see the plants that were growing under natural farming, they were able to survive. Within hours, the water could recede, percolate into the soil, and the plants were able to stand upright. Whereas in chemical farming, we could see the water was not able to percolate, it was standing, the plants were flooded, and ultimately the crops rotted. So this is the difference we have seen. So we could deduce from this that soil is the key to combat such extreme weather conditions. So you have seen how it works, natural farming, in the terms of making your inputs and creating very less impact on the environment, and also the how you are aiding the soil to become more fertile and enable the plant to withstand extreme conditions.
So essentially, natural farming helps in making the soil porous. So whether you have flood, which is excess of water, or whether you have drought, which is shortage of water, in either of these conditions, it gives a better chance for the plants to adopt. So the requirement of water is less in case of a drought, and if there is excess water, it percolates and goes away. And that also saves the plant from rotting. Now, the other thing which natural farming also does when it relates to soil is to create carbon sink. Now, this can be used to reduce some of the emissions, and it basically is what it means, a carbon sink. Can you talk to us a little bit more about having this advantage and how exactly the carbon sink mechanism works?
See, land is after the seas or the water, it's a second big, large carbon sink where it traps the carbon and releases when it is required. So lot of carbon gets trapped in the soil. Now that is why they say no tillage and all that, so that you don't upset the cycle. But whatever it is, when you practice natural farming, your soil becomes porous once again, and it is able to take in all these things. So it is a very large carbon sink. That is why we had one project in East Calcutta wetlands, where both water and land we had done the project. East Calcutta wetlands, as we know, it is a very big carbon sink for that particular place. But because the ecosystem was disturbed due to human intervention, uh, the land became compact and it was no longer able to capture this, carbon. So we had to take an initiative forward to reset this ecosystem. A little small piece of land, only 2 GPs were given to us. They call it Kyada, Kyada 1 and Kyada 2. In Kyada 1 and Kyada 2, in Kyada 1, we experimented with the land, introducing natural farming to restore that ecosystem. And in Kyada 2, we did the water, recycling of that water, so that the ecosystem is brought back. Now, what was happening in Calcutta was the whole sewage was flowing into that. First, it was a Hooghly River. Because Hooghly River got choked, they let it into the East Calcutta wetlands, and the wetlands were able to withstand, because wetlands are a very big carbon sink, as you know. And that was happening, that was going very smooth until there were some human interventions, some buildings coming up, and the soil becoming hardened and all that. And then this condition, the ecosystem got disturbed at that point of time. Again, we only had to put it back. The humans have to rectify that. So we were given that project, and we could do, with the help of some, some technique that we had, to restore the water and to restore the land. So we adopted natural farming in Kyada 1, where we said, stop using the chemicals, because the chemicals are making the soil compact. And we wanted to restore that soil again back into its original form, so that it can absorb that and become a carbon sink. So this is how the carbon sink, land is a very big carbon sink next to the seas or the water or the oceans. And so we have to keep it in its original form in order to absorb the emissions, that is the carbon, which is the major emission.
And with that, we are closing out this conversation. And just to reiterate, we see how climate change is interconnected to agriculture and food security. Climate change has an impact on agriculture, and agriculture also has an impact on climate change. And to most of our conversations close out with this question, and that is, when we talk about both agriculture and climate change, we are seeing natural farming as a solution, of course, but what can consumers, what can you and I do to bring about a positive change and to contribute towards that good change that we can add to?
Yeah, as consumers, you must become aware of this first and foremost, why we are facing this weltering weather, this extreme heat, or there is no relief for you in summer, or heavy rains in parts of India where it gets, diluted with water. All these things, you should be mindful of it. One. Second thing, you should be mindful of what you are eating. That is another important thing. If you demand for natural food or organic food, then you can save this planet Earth. With your demand, yes, then the production will happen, and production in a sustainable way that could help. So it is we who should bring in lot of awareness among the consumers to consume that food which is nutritious, chemical free, and produced naturally or in an organic way. That way you will be actually saving this planet Earth.
Yep, it's always important to pull the thread from where our food is coming, what goes into it, how it is manufactured or processed or grown, or even what fodder is used if we are talking about what is given to livestock as well. Well, with that, we are closing out this conversation. We'll be back with more such topics. And of course, you can always chime in and comment what you would like to listen to. Thank you so much for listening. This is Going Easy on Earth.